Good afternoon, IB Biology. This is Mr. McGee. It is Thursday night at 5:30, and I've already recorded this partially, and then my wife called and my phone rang, so I am going to have to restart this. We are doing our lab on the inhibition of catalase by copper sulfate. I'm going to have you guys do your assignment just like we did a few times last year. Hopefully you're already at this point where you can see the assignment right here for Google Docs. Very easy lab because you guys aren't really writing much. I just want to see you making a graph and getting used to the habit again of making graphs. So make sure you put your name and a title there just for the sake of building a habit. But your work here is going to be done on the graph. So click here for your table. Notice there is a lot of data on there. And in order to work with this, we need to download this as an Excel file. Come over here, click on Open a New Window, which kind of pretty much opens the same window, it looks like. And from here, you can open it as a Google Sheet, but don't click on that because we're not doing this in Google Sheets. Go over here to Download, and you can now download this into whatever folder you want to. I'm not going to do that because I already have the file, so here it is. Once you guys get this open, we need to do some work with this. Now, the nice thing about today's lab is you don't need to tidy this up like I normally have you do because all you're going to have to do is make a graph. So we're not going to do all that tidying up, but obviously you would want these labeled. This is the seconds here, and this represents uninhibited, and this is seconds representing inhibited. Notice some of you did not finish all of your trials, and that is completely fine because I've got plenty of other trials for all of these. So we would definitely want to label these up here as time, and this was time for the, this is time in seconds and whatnot. Down here, this is the trial number, and these, if you recall, represented the amount of oxygen gas that was released. So we would normally want this labeled over here, but maybe you could stick that label in there. But we're not making the graph or the table today, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm sorry, I've just done this several times, and I'm just losing my line, and I'm getting tired. All right, so let's go ahead and get to making the graph here. First, we need to calculate the mean as we've always done. Remember, you can click on a box and come up here to Functions, and you can go here to Average or find that under All. And average is a way to basically calculate your mean. You can, again, click and highlight there to get the mean just like that. Or you can take the shortcut, which is just to click your raw data, highlight it all, and then drag one box down, go over to Auto Sum and click Average. Easy shortcut way to do it. Next thing we're going to need to do is change our decimal points here. So if you remember, you want to have 1 decimal point more than your raw data. And if this is a whole number, you want this down to 1 decimal point. And that just kind of keeps it consistent. We want to do this because it may affect the way our graph turns out, but I don't know. Excel is very finicky. Let's go ahead and make our graph. We're going to just kind of move this to the side. I click a little corner, and you can come up here to view and change the zoom, but if you're like me, I just hold Control, and then I change the zoom with my wheel mouse. Now, what I like to do is I like to zoom out far enough that I still have room to work and make my graph over here, but that's completely up to you guys and what you want to do. So again, we're working with time at the top as our independent variable, and the mean amount of oxygen gas produced as our dependent variable. We actually have 2 separate experiments too, which means we have 2 separate scatter plots, but we can make these as one. Go over here to Insert. Let's go over here to Scatter Plots. And we're going to do it differently today. Instead of just this line, I'm going to ask you to make a line graph and click on it like that. The problem is the computer is not smarter than a human, contrary to what a lot of you have thought. The computer doesn't know what to do. We've got to tell it what to do. So forget everything the computer's doing. It's trying to interpret this. Instead, we're going to tell it to select the data. So go up here, and you just pretty much have to click Remove. And again, that is because the computer is trying to figure out this table that you made. It's really not smart enough. We're going to go ahead and add one data set. We'll give it the series name and call it Uninhibited. And let's go ahead and give it our x-axis. That, of course, would be time. And don't drag it all the way across, just for the uninhibited. And our y-axis, of course, would be the time for the bubbles to rise. Click down here, highlight the time down there. And voila, looks like a nice curve. But we have to do the same thing, but we have to do it for the inhibited. Come down here to your x-axis, that is your time, and then your y-axis, of course, is the time, or the amount of bubbles produced in milliliters. And there you go. We now have a beautiful looking graph, and now all we have to do is tweak it. So a couple things we're going to do first. First, I probably am going to, you can zoom in on this. Fine, let's just do that. I'm going to zoom into it like this. Or you can always click on the lines and you can play with the font here if you want to make it bigger, smaller, etc. But I'm just not going to worry about that right now. All right, so if we can see, here's our graph. I'm sorry, one more time. I'm sorry, guys. I've been beaten up pretty bad today. All right, moving over there. I want to move this so that you all can see this with relative ease. And that's probably going to be as good as I'm going to get it. I just want you to be able to see it. All right, let's go ahead and adjust this graph. So the first thing we want to do again is we want to put our titles down here on our axis. Let's go ahead and put our axis titles in there. This is going to be time, and then you want a unit, in this case in seconds. Let's go over here to this axis title. You want to have what it represents, and this is volume of, I'm writing this sideways, of O2, or we could just say oxygen gas produced. And this is measured in milliliters. So we're going to leave it like that. I'm not going to make you do uncertainty today, plus and minus, but that's pretty much where that is. Click on here, and you can also blow this up if you want to make that bigger. And you can see that's how you can play around with these. As far as inhibited, uninhibited, I'm going to show you a couple ways to do this. You can click and delete that, or you could have kept it and you can drag it up here, but I'm not going to make you do that right now. In this case, come over here, get rid of those grid lines, and let's shrink this up here a little bit. I'm going to click on the inside graph and drag this down just so it fits a little bit nicer. I really want it to fit as best as possible inside of there. And notice, looks like we have an issue with the time down here in seconds. If I'm not mistaken. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I was thinking of another class's lab. I did a class, my junior class, and they went up to 140. Then they went to 260 seconds, and that's what messed me up. I'm in the wrong class. Click on this, right-click, go to Format Access, and we don't need it to go to 160. Let's have it go to 140. And what we want it to do is not be on auto, so let's just put in 0, even though it said 0. That way it doesn't reset itself later on us, because it's really annoying when it does that. All right, so now we have our curve. The last thing we need to do is, well, we could put a chart title in there. And so put your chart title in there. I'll let you guys do that. But the next thing we want to do is come down here, go to Legend. Now, last year I did not do a lab that required a legend, but this year, this lab, because it's kind of two separate experimental lines, you're going to want a legend in there just like that. And with that said, that's pretty much about it right there. You guys will now need to get a copy of this and put it in the file. So come on down here, or whoops, on my computer, it's down here. You want to get the snipping tool. On Microsoft, it's called snipping tool, like that. Come and click on it. And you can come up here and you can actually chop this out. Now, when you write your research papers like your IA and you do it on Microsoft Word, you will not need to do that. You can just click on the graph and it'll move over. But because we're doing this on Google Sheets, we have to have something that Google Sheets can work with, because Google Sheets can be lame at times. So come down here, and now you can paste this as an image, and you can do whatever you want to it. But there is your graph. So hopefully this was helpful. I know it was a lot. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going home. Have a good night.